Welcome to AGAPE Social Justice, where we focus on love, truth, and justice. It's Black History Month, and I'm excited to have Margaret Hall with me today because when you think about people in your life who are not just like a walking encyclopedia, but people who have wisdom and can speak life into you, that's what I think about Margaret Hall. And so get ready to go on a journey with us in talking about the state of Black America, what we had in the past, where we are today, and where we should go in the future. Margaret, I thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Stephanie. I don't know what to say after that introduction.
It's all true. It is all
I
true.
so appreciate that. Thank you so much. So, this being Black History Month, I remember growing up, Black History really wasn't celebrated because it didn't start until 1976. And at that time, I was in college already. So, Black history was great. And when I went to school, we did things that had to do with being Black, but it was not celebrated and, recognized as Black History Month, where you can wear your colors. You heard about the songs of Blackness and all the Black heroes and stuff. But you do want to know that during that time period when I was in school, we did read about Black people, but we read about it because we chose to read about it. So we had a history assignment to do, or we had a special reading to do, say at church or, at Sunday school, or maybe even at a school assembly. We look back characters because we wanted to hear about Black people. Martin Luther King, yes. Rosa Parks, yes. Sojourner Truth, yes. W.B. Du Bois. I mean, there's such a list of them. But today, it seems like it's just, to me, it should be bigger.
Yeah.
It should
So
be bigger.
so tell us a little bit about who you are and where you were born and raised. And so were you at a predominantly Black school learning about these things? Tell us a little bit more about.
So born and raised in Detroit, from the northwest side of Detroit. I went to Mumford High School, went to McDowell Elementary School. It was not a predominantly Black school. It was predominantly Jewish
Mm,
because that was the neighborhood that I lived in.
okay.
And from there, went to Mumford, Fobian Middle School or junior high at that point, which is now a school. Um, but I right now am doing things that have to do with educating adults. So I've gone from the K through 5 sector to the 5 through 12 sector, and then adult education is what I'm doing right now in life skills. Went to University of Detroit, got my communications degree from there. Then I went to get my master's degree in IT. And then from there, I've been teaching since 2003. So I'm always involved in education some kind of way. Former school board trustee for Southwood Public Schools for 5 years. I got very involved with my kids in education when they were actually starting school. I was a room mom, then I was a PTA president, and I became a trustee after that. And then I started my own nonprofit. I got involved with domestic violence at that point. I'm a survivor of domestic violence, so I moved into that sector. And once I started my nonprofit with domestic violence, and I became more involved with children and child abuse because that also sometimes goes in hand with domestic violence. I was looking at the whole scope of what's going on with our kids today and families.
Right. So that's a lot. That's a lot of life experience, which is why you always have those nuggets that you drop on us all the time. So in 2023, when you think about the state of Black culture, the Black community, the Black family, you and I talk a lot about education all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, it's quite devastating actually when we think about what's happening today. What would you say are the most drastic changes that you see from your era in terms of knowing about our culture and our history and it being celebrated and promoted to where we are today?
I think that our children don't get a chance to be children today.
Mm.
I think that our children, there's no filters anymore for them. You don't get to be a kid. When we were growing up, you were a child, and it was recognized as that. There seems like, you know, people have crossed the line anymore. There's no filter, there's no barrier where you didn't tread down that road. There were children in the room, so you basically respected that. I don't see that anymore. I don't see the protection in place for kids where it should be. I don't see where children get a chance to have this voice that says, hey, I'm a child, let me be one as long as I can, because when I become an adult, I never go back. So I think the innocent piece of kids today is not where it should be. I think the fact that it's not even framed that way anymore. It's upsetting to me today that all these school shootings and teachers and just schools in an uproar because of, what's going on, whereas people feel that they need to destroy that institution. It's abominable to me, and I think it's outrageous, and there should be something done because kids today go to school scared.
You're right. And it's interesting that you say that kids can't be kids anymore. I've heard people say it, but typically when they say it, it's in the context of standardized testing or social media or something like that. But you're right. I mean, oftentimes it's the adults who come into their space and we're causing them to grow up even faster than they should. Quite frankly, I think that we have caused them trauma that we see that's playing out in many of our school systems today, and kids are just overwhelmed. It's too much.
So today I think children would welcome a bedtime story
Mm,
to settle them down after going through the chaotic stuff that happens in the world today of just going to school. I mean, we had this situation whereas before COVID, we were starting to see school shootings. Just very concerning to me that that's an area I think you shouldn't cross into. You should never threaten, a large body of people who are trying to educate young minds.
mm,
So that's going to let them be their memories for the rest of their lives about what was it like growing up in the United States today. I think that's horrific that kids have to go into lockdown mode when
mm,
something happens. And I think that our schools are being attacked today, as well as the kids, as well as the family. The institutions that we hold sacred in the United States today, I think they're under attack. And I think it's for a reason. And maybe people aren't realizing it, but if we don't do something about it, it's going to be barbaric.
mm,
And there won't be a reason to have children anymore. Because why bring them in a world where people are trying to kill them?
mm,
And the children don't understand that. They're innocent. They don't know about guns and all this other stuff. There's no filter for them. There is no, you're too young for this. I mean, just look at where we are. It's basically, to me, everywhere they look today, it's something that is not for kids. Whatever's on the TV, whatever this music. I mean, kids don't even play outside anymore. They don't
it's
have a
very
world that they can
scheduled.
escape to. If they can envision a world for kids and what it would be like, I think it would be great if children could go outside and play like we used to play. And we'd never come in the house. We didn't want to. Of course, the street lights came on. We had to, but seriously, we could have stayed outside all night, went to sleep, got up, come in the house, dress up, clean up, and go back outside.
Mm-hmm.
But most kids today, they don't go outside. They don't spend time
Uh-huh.
outside. They don't get a chance to know their neighbors. You don't even see groups of kids going and doing things anymore,
Yeah.
unless there's an adult present.
Well, when I see groups of kids together, it's usually because it's scheduled.
Yes.
The scheduled play date
Right.
in the suburbs, right?
Play date? Well, seriously, the whole playground was your play date back in the day. If you went to the playground unescorted, your friends were there from 3, 4 blocks away.
Mm-hmm.
And the same thing when you went to school in the morning, you'd walk the kids. I mean, you would see them every day. When you came out to your house, there'd already be a group of kids walking by. You just joined that group and walked to school,
Mm-hmm.
and you came home the same way.
Why do you think that changed? Why are neighborhoods different now where it doesn't really have that family feel and that sense of community that was once, I mean, I would automatically associate that with the Black community
Hmm.
and not so much today. Why do you think that changed?
I think it changed when people decided that I don't want anybody else telling me what to do with my kids. I don't want this neighbor saying nothing. I don't want that neighbor saying anything. The village used to work. I mean, it does take a village to work, raise a child. And your family is part of that village. And when we had that unit, I think we were so much better off. You didn't worry. You didn't get concerned. If you were late coming home from work, your child could go to Miss So-and-so's house and wait there. Or somebody had a key to let your kid in, and the kid would be okay until you got home. You exchanged phone numbers. You knew their children. I mean, there was not this worry about this. You didn't need a telephone, that's for
Mm-hmm.
sure, to call. Did you make it in? There was none of that. It was peaceful. Your child would get out of school. We would get out of school. We would come home, take our time. As we passed by the neighbor's house, hello, Miss So-and-so, hello, Mr. So, and they knew you and would say hello. I think when we started sequestering off into our houses, versus into the neighborhood, because you move someplace for big reasons. You want a family setting. And I'm a real estate agent. I've never had anybody tell me, take me to the worst neighborhood in the world. And that's where I want to live. They want to go to great neighborhoods. And why are they great neighborhoods? Because there's a family feel to them. But today, most neighbors don't know their next door neighbors.
Right.
They don't know their first and last name. They don't know who their family members are. But growing up, we used to know Mr. So-and-so across the street, Miss So-and-so 2 blocks away, who their children were. If relatives were visiting, we even knew them. In the summertime, when everybody was home, you walked to the pool or to the playground or to the basketball court with a whole bunch of kids, and you knew them. And some were just visiting here for the summer, but you knew them. And over time, when they came and you were growing up, you remembered them. But you don't see that anymore. You don't see any of that.
What about the role of the church? I mean, it seems to me that there was a period of time where the church created some sort of a foundation and stability for the communities too. I don't know that I see that so much today.
You don't really see it anymore. I think that when we were in church, it was a part of us as a culture. When we didn't have nothing, we had God. Seriously. So that was something that I think we kept on purpose. But then that we removed it for whatever reason. I don't know. But at the end of the day, if you don't have God, you don't have anything. So now that there is less of God in the neighborhoods, in the family dynamics, you're seeing a lot of problems. But when we were kids growing up, sometimes the church was the place where you got a chance to read on a regular basis when you went to Sunday school. You also got a chance to perform in the church play. You also got a chance to have family in church with you, watching you up there saying your speech. And, and even then, eating at church after church on Sunday was a big family meal. It wasn't like you weren't at the drive-through or stopping at, some other place. Families did have food on Sunday, if nothing else, every Sunday, and other folks would come and join you as well. And I don't know why that has changed. I don't know why there are less churches around today. I don't know why there's less people going to church today. I have my own ideas about it, but I won't get into that. But we seem to have removed ourselves from God.
You know what? For the first time, you caused me to think about education within the church in a different way. And what I mean by that is when you talked about what kids would get when they went to the church, you said you're reading at church, particularly through Sunday school. Well, we have a serious literacy issue in this country. And when you think about how few kids are actually in the church now, that's one less opportunity that they had to learn how to read and be able to practice it, and then have an adult read to them, all of which data shows helps them with their development. You talked about eating after church and that fellowship and that sense of community where kids don't feel love anymore, but yet that was already in place. And it taught you etiquette. Because when you were in the church, they were telling you how you should behave and how you should interact with everybody else. And I never really thought about the church in that way in terms of some of those foundational skills that oftentimes I complain about that I don't see in kids. Like they're not getting what was once even what the church was providing.
And that was what it was basically about. It was an extension of your family so that you could come and feel welcome, not embarrassed or whatever thing. The Sunday school teacher used to help you read, help you sound out words until you got it right with no embarrassment, no shame, no grade, no test. But you used to know your speech. You used to read the Bible. You used to know what things meant. You know the books of the Bible. And those are the beginning things that you may not have read someplace else. But when that Sunday school book opened, you could pronounce words. You could pronounce Deuteronomy. You knew how to say things like Ecclesiastes. I mean, it was not a big deal. But today, you don't see that. So really, the church was helping us set a foundation for us to be literate, not illiterate. And as we grasped the knowledge, when you moved up in Sunday school from maybe the beginners to the juniors, the words did get harder, but you knew how to pronounce them. And there were things that you didn't forget. So it was like a chance for us to basically read, understand, and grasp for more knowledge of how to read and understand and process that stuff. So that was the beginning for us. As well as the culture, like you said, eating out with family at the church. Of course, you learn manners. You didn't have to go to some school to learn that because you were taught that at church. Can I be excused? You knew which napkin was for what. You used the napkin, the fork, the knife, the spoon, and all of that. What the table setting looked like. You didn't have to go to a restaurant. It was at church on Sundays.
Or pay $50 or $100 for etiquette class today, which
Exactly,
is what
right.
people
Because
do.
you got it for free right there. And it was just something, it was like a rite of passage for you to be able to do. You were no longer at the little kids' table. You came to the big kids' table with the adults. And it was the same thing. And you learned and you aspired as a child. I can't wait till I'm old enough to do that. Do kids even say that anymore? I can't wait till I can sing in the choir. I can't wait till I'm an usher. I can't wait till I can be the person who's saying a speech on Sunday. There were steps for us to take, and we were happy to stay in a child's place because there was somewhere for us to go and aspire to. But everything like that is gone. You don't see that anymore. You don't hear kids talk about it anymore because too much is thrown at them and there's no steps for them to take.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, I never even thought of it that way. So, I have been in the presence of students. I went back to my old middle school probably about 6 years ago, did some volunteer work with Detroit Police Department. And when we went in, I remember some students saying to me, like they didn't even know if they were gonna live to be an adult. You know what I mean? Just had no hope, really didn't have aspirations, didn't know what they were gonna do. Um, when you think about kids today, what do you think we need to do so that we give them that hope and those aspirations again? How will you get back to that place?
Put the filters back in place. Don't think that children need to learn more than they can process and understand. Not on your timing, but a child's timing. As a child progresses, you don't just all of a sudden throw solid foods at them, right? You start out with breastfeeding or formula, and then they work themselves into soft foods, right? Not just giving them a hamburger when they're 1 month old. You process and go through this because the steps are ready. So we have to remember that children have to have steps in their life. They can't be 21 when they're 1. They should not be worried about whether they're going to make it home, whether I'm going to live to be 12 years old. No child should have to worry about living or dying. When you're a child, that's not something that's even on your mind. So I think we have to go back to some ways where children were valued because they are the future. Kids don't need to be worried about things like getting shot, getting killed, violence or whatever. All the things that come into their life right now that are no longer filtered out. I mean, not even television anymore. You have to basically watch what your kids watch on TV. You have to watch what the kids are looking at on the internet. You have to be that filter for them. You cannot be filterless in a kid's life because you're not giving them a chance to be a child. But then when they start to act out, you don't seem to understand why. It's too much for them. They can't process that. Scientists will tell you that, doctors will tell you that, the data will show you that. Something that happens to a child when they're 2 years old, okay, is a lot different for them when they're 5 years old. Okay? Can you remember when you were 2?
No.
Can you remember when you were 5?
Just barely.
Right. But you can believe today 5-year-olds, 6-year-olds on, kids are going to remember what happened to them when there was a school shooting when they were in the first grade and kindergarten.
And
Who wants to do that?
And I'm hearing that kindergartners are being kicked out of school.
Yes.
Suspended these days.
That's right.
It's mind-blowing.
So where does that come from? You wonder, where does that behavior come from? Why is it in the schools? Well, wherever they saw it, it happened probably at home. Just to be honest with you, kids, whatever they have with them, they bring it to the school. You're meeting a child for the first day, you don't know them, whatever, but whatever's going on with them, they're bringing to the classroom. All 28, 25, 30 kids or whatever, right? So you think about this, who is this child and what's going to be like, what is going to be the things that they're going to remember about me as their kindergarten teacher, first grade teacher? How can I help them be okay with coming to school? I think kids deal with a lot of anxiety they come into school. I just think they come to school anxious at 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock in the morning. I think they have anxious bus rides or even with their drop off at the school. You have got to put the filters back in place. You have to protect those children like you did before they were born and after they were born. Because whatever you have put into them, they're going to bring into the world.
So if I'm listening to you right now as a viewer and, come from a dysfunctional family, not seeing what it looks like to create those filters, to have a healthy, household and parenting style for my kids. Are there one or two things that you would recommend that a young mom or young dad would do so that they can kind of shift what they're instilling in their kids today?
So if people can remember when they first find out they were having a baby, what was that moment like? Most of the time people are overjoyed.
Mm-hmm.
It's the most precious thing in the world happening to you. And you value that moment forever, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you also protect that. Watch out through the pregnancy, what you eat, get enough sleep, taking care of yourself. Because what you're doing is affecting that baby, right? So you got to do the same thing once the baby gets here. You always should, I think, protect what you help bring into this world. You don't want the world to raise it. So make sure you're the one doing it and making sure you're putting things in them that they can take with them forever. Learn how to say no, right? I'm not your friend. I'm your mother, your father. You'll have plenty of friends in life, but you're going to have one parent.
Mm-hmm.
And it's okay to tell your kid no. And sometimes they're glad that you said no. And also the thing is, don't let something else be the babysitter.
Mm-hmm.
You babysit your kid. Don't set them somewhere with technology and say, hey, that's what they need. No, that's just too much because you don't have any control over that. But what you instill in them, they will take with them for the rest of their lives.
Mm-hmm.
They will remember, don't touch the stove, right? Don't do this, don't do that. Because you stop the danger from happening to them. So you got to take that going forward. It doesn't stop.
Right.
It has to continue.
And as an educator, what would you say to those individuals who are contemplating going into education, are new to the field of education, and there seems to be this conflict right now of what I'm seeing where there's cultural competency issues, where you have people who are in the schools who don't necessarily look like their students and they don't understand the dynamics of what's happening at home. They don't understand the kids themselves. What do you say to them so that they can help kind of ease that anxiety and ease other things in tension that's occurring? How do you prepare for that?
I did not start out going to college to be a teacher. I went into communications and I worked in TV for a while. I became an educator because I love reading. And school was something we used to play after school when we got home with my older sister. So the education piece is going to always be a part of me, I guess, because it's in our DNA, because we come from a long line of teachers. The one thing I can tell you is about being a teacher. This guy told me one day, asked me, we were standing there waiting for something. He says, what do you do as I'm a teacher? He says, oh, he says, you have the most important job in the world. He says, you are developing minds.
Mm.
That's the forefront, I think, that when people go into education, you have to remember that. You are developing minds. And when you think about that, that has a huge impact on what your responsibility is. And that mind may look like this particular gender, this particular race, coming from this socioeconomic background or whatever. But it basically is so diverse and inclusive today that you have to be prepared for all of that. And you have to be accepting of that.
Right.
So I think that if you go in with that open-mindedness about it, that the kid themselves, they will see that. Because one thing kids remember, they remember their teachers. Think about it. The child spends more waking hours with a teacher every day than their own parents. So that's the place that I think that a lot of things happen with children, where they value things and they remember is their education, is their school, because they're there every day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I wonder how many teachers today actually stop and reflect and think about it from that perspective. They literally have our children in the palm of their hands every day, shaping them and molding them in terms of who they're going to be in the future. There are people who are 40, 50, 60 years old and they still remember a positive or negative word that a teacher gave them when they were younger. That's how significant and important that is. And I wonder how many people actually go into the profession and think about this throughout their career, because that changes the psyche of a child.
Yes.
And I see it playing out today. And it makes me, honestly, listening to you, it makes me even want to reconnect with educators and figure out, why were you passionate about doing this? And then how can we help you get back to that place of passion? Because we want you to be healthy, and then that way it'll transfer onto the children in the classroom.
Yes, education is the one thing in this world that no one can take from you,
Mm.
because it's in your mind forever. I mean, remember the first time you recited your ABCs? Do you think you'll ever forget it? No.
I remember fourth grade being challenged to, I think it was a contest, learn all the states in alphabetical order. And I remember going home like in one day.
Alaska, Arkansas, yeah, Arizona, right. But the songs that went with that,
Right,
and I think
right.
today you could probably still recite it if a kid started singing it. So that's the impact on your brain that an educator had in your life.
Yeah,
With
yeah,
just something like remember the 50 states and the song that went through it.
right,
So those type of things are helpful for kids.
right.
So I think their learning experience should be that way all the way through.
Mhm.
Don't stop having fun because you move up the grade. I think education should be just as fun as it was in kindergarten when you go through the 12th grade.
And if you had 30 seconds to tell the listening audience something that they can do, like a call to action to help us in terms of instilling what our young people need in the future, what our young parents need, what educators need, any perspective, maybe even the church, what would be your final words?
Patience, communication, and hope.
Mm,
Those would be the three things that we need, and that's from every aspect of what we're doing today. All that's important.
I like it. I like it. Well, thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
joining us. I'm going to say to the listening audience, patience, communication, and what was the third?
Hope.
Hope. Take those three words and allow that to resonate in your spirit today, tomorrow, next week. Ask yourself, how can you increase your level of patience with your family members, with the children in your neighborhood, with people in your school community? What role can you play in terms of communicating more effectively what some of the issues are? How can you step in and lean into this work and allow people to hear your vulnerability and you encourage them to be vulnerable? Because once we start having that two-way communication and we're really being honest about what we see going on and what we need to do, that's going to make an impact in our homes, in our neighborhoods, in our schools, in our churches. And then have hope. We can't do anything without hope. And so I ask all of you to join us in that effort. Um, Talk to somebody about what you heard today and make sure that we're spreading the word and spreading hope as we move forward. We thank you for joining us today. For those of you who want to support Agape Social Justice and the message that we bring here, we welcome you to go to agapesocialjustice.com. Feel free to become a sponsor. If you want to just support us so that we can keep the programming going, we welcome you to do so, and we thank you and we appreciate it. Have a wonderful week, and we'll see you next time. I want to thank everybody for watching Agape Social Justice Talk Show. I really appreciate all the love and support that you've given. Thank you for reaching out, giving words of encouragement. Thank you to those of you who have gone on our website, agapesocialjustice.com, and signed up to become a sponsor. Whether you have a business or not, you can always join in and support us. We thank you for spreading the word, sharing our episodes, and really making sure that people are learning and growing through this process. You can reach us again at agapesocialjustice.com. Thank you to our sponsors, the individuals who are listed on our website. Thank you to Tia Marie Sanders Foundation, Oakland County African American Family Network, Police to Protectors, and all of the organizations who stepped in to make sure that we can provide the programming that we have today. We love you and blessings to you.